Hi there, welcome to the Rewatch Club, where we deep dive into your comfort shows, collect emotional damage like Pokemon cards, and apparently, never recover from anything the Duffer Brothers do. And listen, the plot twist in Stranger Things 5? Yeah, shook us, shooketh, shookified, shook to the molecular level. So grab your egos, grab your emotional support blanket, because we are not okay. If you haven't watched Stranger Things 5 yet, please turn back now. I repeat, when I yap, like, accidentally spoil the entire storyline with side quests, kind of yap. Don't say I didn't warn you, bestie. Exit now. Escape the chaos while you can. Now let's scream, because the Duffer Brothers just pulled the biggest Uno reverse card in Stranger Things history, and they did it using the one episode everyone collectively skipped like it never existed. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. The episode. The Chicago episode. The Elle meets 8 and becomes an eyeliner wearing punk with questionable judgment episode. The episode the fandom has been roasting since 2017. The episode people pretend is a fever dream. The episode that derailed binge watches so aggressively that Netflix should have added a skip this filler button. Okay, so listen, the latest scene with 8? Absolutely insane. And yeah, at this point it's pretty clear she was being held against her will. The way Dr. K from the military was basically treating her like some kind of living kryptonite, like a weapon specifically crafted to counter 11, was actually wild. It gives that exact same energy as every time someone tries to control these kids instead of helping them. And when Elle walks in, you can see the shock, the sadness, like this instant soft break inside her because she realizes this is her sister, someone who shares her trauma, someone she once lost, and now here she is, trapped again. And Elle doesn't even make it dramatic, she just breathes out, sister, in that crushed little voice and everything stops. I swear the air in the room literally froze. And before anyone forgets, can we talk about how Callie's influence on Elle's life was way more impactful than people give her credit for? Because let's be honest, when Callie appeared again looking like this grungy, punk, chaotic good girlie who walked straight out of an album cover. That was a serve. That look 8. She looked badass, powerful, completely in her element, and there's this sense that she built a whole identity out of the pieces the lab tried to break. She taught Elle things nobody else did, how to lean into anger, how to use pain as direction, how to stop shrinking herself. Like regardless of where you stand with her morally, she fundamentally shifted something in Elle. And seeing her again now, stripped of all that autonomy, being used again? It hurts. It hits a deeper nerve because we know what she fought to become. And then let's shift to Hopper for a second. Hop, who already has a history with this, seeing young girls trapped, experimented on, robbed of choice. You can actually see it in the way he reacts. That moment where he just freezes. He's been through so much, he's held so much in, and it's like the sight of another girl tied up against her will just reignites every trauma, every failure he thinks he made. It's like full circle pain hitting him in the chest. He wants to explode, but he's also cracked open by guilt and recognition. It's a moment that doesn't even need dialogue because the story is happening on his face. And that's why this entire reunion moment between Elle and 8 leaves us with so many questions. Are these newly reunited sisters about to team up and go straight for Vecna? Are we about to see the psychic power sibling duo we were robbed of for literal years? Because imagine the chaos, imagine the chemistry, imagine the damage they could do together. But also, what if this isn't even the final direction? What if this is just a segue into something bigger? Is this just a tiny stepping stone into something even bigger the writers aren't saying yet? Because here's where things get suspiciously interesting. Let me bring up a moment that everyone seems to treat like a cute detail when it was actually prophetic. Remember Erica's first time playing D&D with the Hellfire Club? That wasn't just a fun intro scene. Season 4 Episode 1 literally set up the entire season's stakes through that D&D game. Vecna had 15 hit points. Dustin rolls an 11, miss. Practically saying 11 cannot kill Vecna, then Erica rolls a 20. A critical hit. A perfectly executed finishing strike. Now, pay attention. They had to roll 20 to kill Vecna. That's the magic number. A 20. And before you say, coincidence, here's the part that made me sit up. 11 plus 8 plus 1 equals 20. 11 plus 8 plus 1. The 3 most narrative-heavy experiments. The 3 with the most lore. The 3 whose arcs keep circling each other. And the sum of their numbers just happens to equal the exact number needed to land the killing blow on Vecna in the story's symbolic prophecy? That's not nothing. That is not accidental. That is suspiciously, almost annoyingly perfect. Now, am I saying 11, 8, and Henry, 1 are destined to join forces to defeat Vecna? I'm not saying they will, but I am saying the math is mathing. The symbolism is symbolism-ing. The writers love parallels way too much for this to be random. But let's go deeper. Because what if one, Henry, Vecna, however you want to label him, hasn't actually been the big mastermind this whole time? What if he's been manipulated by the Mind Flayer exactly the way Will was? The Mind Flayer has never been shown to operate without hosts. It's always using someone. Will, Billy, the Flayed, even the Demogorgon acted like a vessel at times. So what if Henry thinks he's the final boss when he's actually just another puppet with better powers and a bigger ego? What if he's been convinced he's in control while the Mind Flayer is quietly steering every decision? If that's true, then suddenly the narrative shifts. It's not 11 versus 1. It's 11, 8, and possibly Henry himself versus the real architect, the Mind Flayer. And that would mean the 20 symbolic clue isn't just symbolic at all, it becomes thematic. Narrative. The completion of the cycle that started with Will. The final closing of the loop that began with Henry. It ties the experiments, the numbers, the prophecies, and the emotional arcs into a single point. Now, I'm not saying I know exactly how Will fits into this either. He's connected. He's clearly important. His connection to the Upside Down has always been deeper than anyone else's. But the way this scene lined up? It felt like a puzzle piece snapping into place. Something about 11, 8, and 1 being brought back into the same narrative moment feels intentional. Heavy, loaded, like the writers are setting the board for something bigger than just a reunion. But truly, this twist with 8 changes everything because it rewrites the entire narrative of how the Hawkins Lab kids fit into the bigger story. It's not just about Elle anymore. It's not just about Henry. Now we're talking about a whole lineage of experiments whose stories were never truly closed. We spent years thinking the other kids were footnotes in Elle's journey, but clearly they're not. They're dominoes the writers purposely left standing for years, waiting to knock them down at the exact right moment. But let's stay on the math for a second, because the 11 plus 8 plus 1 equals 20 thing is still frying my neurons. When you step back and look at the broader narrative structure of Stranger Things, numbers matter. Dates matter. Time loops matter. The clock motif matters. Everything ties back to cycles. And 20 as a number? It's not just a D&D mechanic. It's a completion. A full circle. The highest possible roll. You cannot do better than this moment. That's why the Erica scene was so important. A critical hit means destiny, not chance. And if 11, 8, and 1 are the numerical trio that creates that metaphorical, critical hit, then it suggests something way bigger. It suggests these 3 are the keys to ending the Upside Down permanently. It suggests the Duffers had this plotted years ago and we just missed it because we were too busy arguing over whether Eddie survived and whether Mike Wheeler's haircut should be declared a federal crime. And okay, let's talk about Henry for a second because the man is dramatic. He is a walking red flag wrapped in a beige sweater vest. He has the energy of someone who would write anonymous poetry about revenge. But his power set? It's unmatched. Except, what if he never actually understood the full extent of what he was messing with? What if he thought he was harnessing the Upside Down when the Upside Down was actually harnessing him? Because the Mind Flayer is a hive mind. A controller. A puppeteer. And Henry was emotionally unstable, power-hungry, and eager to be special. That makes him the perfect vessel, not the mastermind. And if the Mind Flayer can use Henry, then why couldn't it use 8? Or 11? Or Will? We already know it used Will. What if the whole point of the experiments wasn't to create superpowered children, but to create vessels strong enough to withstand full Mind Flayer control? That would explain why the lab's obsession wasn't just power, it was breaking them emotionally. A broken vessel is easier to control. And then there's Will. Sweet, traumatized Will, child of the group, baby of the party, boy whose entire personality has become, senses Vecna like a demonic Wi-Fi router. He has been connected to the Upside Down longer than anyone. He feels its presence when no one else can. He knows when things shift, when things breathe, when something awakens. If Henry is the power, and 11 is the heart, and 8 is the illusion, then Will is the signal. The antenna, the one who can sense the Mind Flayer before anyone else even knows something is wrong. Which raises another question. Is Will the final key? Not to kill Vecna, but to find him? To track him? To expose him? Because if the trio, 11 plus 8 plus 1 equals 20, is the weapon, Will might be the map. And if you combine weapon plus map? That's a finale. That's an endgame scenario. That's the kind of narrative symmetry the Duffers love too much to ignore. And honestly, I don't even think this is the last twist. Because Stranger Things loves to throw emotional bombs at us right when we think we've figured something out. So yes, this theory could be spot on, but also the writers could turn around and be like, actually surprise, the real villain was the cafeteria pudding all along. At this point nothing is surprising. What I do know is that the story isn't clean anymore. It's messy, complicated, intertwined, and with 8 back in the picture, everything shifts. The emotional stakes, the power dynamics, the moral grayness, everything. And that's why you need to stay tapped in, because we're going to break down every angle of this in the next videos. The Mind Flayer theory, the vessel theory, the number prophecy, the future of the sisters, the final battle dynamics, and all the little clues the writers sprinkled all over the place hoping we wouldn't notice. But guess what? We noticed. We always notice. And if we're wrong, we'll just make more theories until we're right anyway. Welcome to the Rewatch Club. We suffer here, proudly.